So Alan won the European Regionals, and man, was that an exciting event. I mean, you were able to see what he was able to do and how masterfully he was able to pilot Ezreal. Now, this is something that we are going to be doing a deep dive into. What was his deck list? What decision making did he have? And more importantly, what did he do in the finals to be able to take down the Aurora deck that was plaguing day 2? All of that and more starting right now. And I gotta say, I am really impressed with the Aurora deck because I didn't think that it would necessarily have a place in Spiritforged. I mean, we all say, look at how much destruction of spells and stuff that they have for gear. Why would there ever be a 9-cost spell that would be able to survive for more than a turn? You know, and it was like, yeah, so even with stuff like Mind Splitter and Volley Bears that you're able to hit, you still saw a lot of it kind of go to the wayside, and even like Aurora fall down to like $30 at that point. But then it just absolutely dominated and was able to go against so many different types of decks and show that, you know, it is a force to be reckoned with. And of course, we're not talking about that today in particular, but this is a very big setup for at least what then Alan had to do as well. Now, Alan's track record, first and foremost, was just absolutely impressive because he was able to go undefeated for the entire day. That's not to say that he might not have dropped a game or two, but he was still able to not drop a single round with his Ezreal deck. And that was one thing that was really cool to see, and especially as he was prepping, you can tell, first and foremost, that he had so much playtesting under his belt with this deck, that this is a very refined list that had a lot of kinks worked out. And I mean, you could also tell that as you watch the gameplay, that in a lot of ways, he is very comfortable here with the lines that he's needing to pick. And that's one thing that we're going to be taking a look at, because Ezreal can be a very complicated deck. Miracle builds in general can be a very complicated deck. And the big reason why I say that is in particular the complexity that this deck has. It's tough because it's like, well, you know, you see that you play a called shot with Ezreal out onto the board. Awesome, great. Well, now you get to look at 4 cards and pick 2 from among them, of course, at different instances, but still that alone can be a very big decision-making process, because especially when you have a difficult decision where you might have like a Rebuke or an Arcane Shift that's in front of you, well, depending on your situation, what do you then pick? You know, and that's going to be one of the biggest things. Or even like something like Stacked Deck, where you see 3 cards, and sometimes it might be an easy decision, but other times it can be a very difficult one too. Now, again, I am still incredibly impressed with what this deck is able to do. And for those of you who might be new to Spiritforged in general, what Ezreal specifically says and does is at reaction speed, you can tap the legend to be able to draw 1. You can only use this if you've chosen enemy units and or gear twice this turn with spells or unit abilities. So again, that's going to be something to be rather helpful here. But I gotta say, one of the most powerful cards here in the deck, the MVP really, is going to be Vex. Now, why is that? I mean, Vex is someone that's been falling really under the radar here. We haven't seen it in Draven really all that much. We haven't seen it in a lot of decks in particular. And then you see what this legend ability is, or this champion ability is, and you're like, yeah, this is powerful, but you know, I think there's just better options, especially where this meta seems like it is a bit more aggressive. And so it's like, all right, cool. Well, we take a look at Vex. And it says, while I'm in combat, friendly spells cost 1 and 1 power less to a minimum of 1, and enemy spells cost 1 and 1 power more. So the biggest thing is, and one thing that just is an absolutely crazy combo, is you send Vex in, and you can play out Called Shot for free. Because Ezreal, if you have Ezreal out on the board, he's also going to be covering the cost there, so you get the repeat cost for free at that point. And then Vex also will be removing a power cost at that point too. So you're able to get a lot done here with that combo in particular. And then even on top of that, you just have a lot of cards in your arsenal to be able to use. I mean, first and foremost, having a Rebuke that you're able to utilize here, where you're able to attack in with Vex, and you play out a Rebuke. Okay, cool. Well, it costs 1 in a power. That saves you so much in these types of gameplay. And then on top of that too, you also have just a lot of really awesome spells. Wages of Pain is going to be one of the best ones for you to be able to use, especially with something like Void Gate. Being able to deal 4 damage instead of 3. 4 is such a magic number here in Riftbound and Spiritforged, because that seems to be a very important threshold here. If you're able to deal 4, that's a big deal. But not only that, even if you're able to deal 1 more damage and then use something like Stupefy to be able to get them down to the damage threshold to where they will die, well, that's a big deal and a huge win, because, again, if you're able to take care of their units while also continuing to build up your board and your hand, then you are in a very powerful spot. And that's one thing that I do absolutely love about this deck. And one thing that is very powerful here that I do not want to understate: the fact that you have an Ezreal at the ready as your essential 5th card kind of thing, because it's outside in the champion zone. This is something that is so powerful, where you don't have to worry about it like in the Draven decks, where if you're playing like Miracle Draven or Sivir or anything like that, well, you then need Ezreal to be in, your hand in the first couple of turns. But with Ezreal, of course, he's going to be immediately in your starting hand and something that you are able to then utilize. And so that in and of itself is going to be such a powerful asset for you to be able to utilize. So if you have something like Seal of Discord, you can then tap Seal of float a rune to be able to play out Seal of Discord, and then tap the other 2 to be able to play out Ezreal with the seal covering the power cost. And then you can also discard something, even like maybe an Arcane Shift or something along those lines, to get some very powerful combos going so that you can draw some cards with Ezreal and then set up the later games in your board. One thing that I also really like about this deck list is going to be Fizz, the Trickster himself. I mean, just a very powerful card here, where when you play me, you may play a spell from your trash with the energy cost no more than 3, ignoring its energy cost, recycle that spell after you play it, and you must still pay the power cost. So it's like, all right, cool. Well, I'm going to go in and play Arcane Shift. Arcane Shift then is going to blip Fizz back out and back in. Fizz is then going to be playing Wages of Pain. Okay, cool. Well, if we're also playing a unit, or if there's a unit in Void Gate, well, then we're essentially doing now 8 damage to that unit. If you have a Mind Splitter there, if you have a Thousand Tail Watcher, whatever you might have there, it's pretty much dead at that point. And even if it's not, well, you just spent 3, essentially. I mean, yeah, you do have to pay a power cost here, but Wages of Pain, you're perfectly fine at that point. So you spent 3 and 2 power to be able to deal 8 damage. Then on top of that, even if you have some additional damage that needs to be done, well, then you can play out like a Stupefy to minus some stuff, maybe a Smoke Screen to be able to minus 4, or even better yet, Frigid Touch, which can also be repeated, and you can say, all right, so I've dealt, 4 damage here, 4 damage here, all right, well, let's minus 2 here, minus 2 here. Those units are now dead. And so there is just so many cool combos that you are able to do here with Ezreal, and it is why it is such a powerful deck. Again, though, one of the hardest parts, though, is going to be the fact that it is a very complicated deck. And again, you're going to be watching the Alan gameplay here that we're getting to in a moment, and you're going to be able to see what he's able to do here and his decision making. And this is why I love seeing these casted matches, because then you're able to go into what Alan is doing and what he is, what decision making he's going through here. Because when you're going against the Aurora MF and it's like, all right, cool, well, I'm going to do a called shot. Here's my options here. I'm going to pick this one. And you can start dissecting what Alan is doing as a competitor and learn and better your own game. And so I really like that we have 2 gameplays that we're able to look at here. We are only going to be looking at the finals, but the Ezreal mirror match is one really interesting that I think also should be watched over too. And again, this is something that people are probably going to be doing. It would not surprise me if at Vegas we are going to be seeing so much more Ezreals now coming in, and even maybe some carbon copies of this deck here. And so definitely something to keep in mind about that. But even still, I gotta also say, with all the spells that you are able to sling, having Ravenbloom Student is just such a big difference maker, because if you're playing out multiple spells, now of course repeat does not count as an additional spell, so keep that in mind, but even still, if you're playing out a Stupefy, then you reveal a Wages of Pain, then you do, multiple other spells that you might be able to do at this point, well then Ravenbloom's just getting +1 every single time, and so it's like, cool, well I -1 from you, but I gained 1 here. Alright, cool, I just -2 from you, I just gained 1 here, and so there's some really cool combos that even Ravenbloom Student is going to be able to add to your gameplay. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the gameplay here and dissect what is going on. And again, I gotta say, very impressed here with what Alan is able to do, and you're going to see a board state here in the finals that just doesn't seem like Alan is going to be able to get around it, but he's able to, which is just absolutely cool. So again, already really quick decision making there on the fight or flight. Let me actually go back to see what potentially he was picking. I hate that. I hate playing the guess the card at that point, but still, he put a singularity at the bottom, and he only does have 1 singularity there. And so we are going to be sending the Ravenbloom Student into the Void Gate, going to be playing out the Seal. Oh, that is such a gorgeous card. Very expensive at this point. And then he is going to be doing the Ezreal play, being able to now discard and draw 2. So discarding the Stupefy to draw 2, getting a Fizz and a Mind Splitter. So Mind Splitter is going to be a really great option here, mainly because you are then going to be able to take a look at your opponent's hand and basically say, get rid of that card. The only problem is he already does have Aurora in hand. He has the ramp in hand. So Alan is not going to be able to play out the Mind Splitter before Aurora is going to get played. And so, unfortunately, that's going to be a dead target here. And that's where the odds are going to start getting stacked against Alan. And so, again, though, one of the biggest things, though, is you do want to keep your Ezreal alive. One thing that we do want to note is how often throughout this finals does he use Ezreal to be able to get points, and what he might have in hand when he does. Because Ezreal is kind of the bread and butter here. It sets up so many combos, especially with Vex in combat, so that you can get an upper hand. So in this case, especially with no units out, trying to race here to get some options going, and then he immediately plays out Vex and is able to start getting the combo pieces in place. You know what's coming at this point. You know it's only a matter of time, especially with the draw, that Aurora is going to be coming. And so here it is. It's time for it to come out, 9-2. And, I mean, that is a very happy cost at this point. And you're hoping to hit a Mind Splitter. If you're able to hit a Mind Splitter, that can devastate your opponent, because there's going to be so much hand destruction there to be able to slow things down. And so, okay, so here's the thing. Let's take a look then at what Alan currently has in his hand. So he does have the smoke screen, which is awesome. The stack deck, Ravenbloom, yeah. And so, I mean, he does have a very powerful one. You got to be worried about maybe the Fizz a little bit here, just because, I mean, what? He has the Stupefy, and what was the first card that he ended up discarding? But even still, I think Alan's in a good position here. All the same, but you got to be mindful of the card draw that he could be keeping in mind. Now, also, I really like here at this point how Alan is taking a look at the cards that were revealed here from the Aurora. That's going to be a huge cue. And yes, there is an open deck list that you're able to take a look at when you are in the finals top cut kind of thing. But even still, that's going to be something to really help you out. So in this case, yeah, it looks like the Fizz was selected at that point. Good choice. You're still going to be hoping that maybe the stack deck is going to get you your answers here. And a top deck of the Fizz. Now, luckily, running 2, that is going to be a big save here. So the Fizz is immediately going to be coming out and playing out the stack deck at this point. And at this, I mean, it's looking good here. But still, now that the Mind Splitter, and this is the interesting part about the Aurora. You're not playing Deadbloom Predator. You're not playing any other big units except for Volibear and Mind Splitter. and that's a huge risk that can have some decent rewards with it, but at the same time, you're really counting on the fact that you are going to be able to get an Aurora out sooner rather than later so that you can continue to bombard your opponent here. And so even with like Sigil of the Storm, that can be something to really set back your opponent here. But even with another Aurora in hand, this is going to be something to be rather devastating here if he's able to get up to the correct rune count again. And yeah, it looks like he is there. So double Aurora. And again, you're going to be maybe hitting the Volley Bears or the Mind Splitters in either way. So there's the Volley Bear on the first one. It's immediately going out. And this is where it gets dangerous because you're going to be, one, destroying their hand. And then on top of that, you're going to be able to really build up the battlefields at this point. And so looks like Mind Splitter is going to be preparing to go into the other battlefield at this point. You saw the punch first. Oh, nope, not in this case. But yeah, because the MF is going to be giving ganking. And so getting rid of the Thousand Tail Watcher, I mean, the -3 is going to be a huge thing because if you can start dealing damage to units, you -3, and then you have Wages of Pain or things like that. Singularity especially would just absolutely clean up the board at this point. And so there's a lot there. I mean, heck, right now we're at 24 might that is in the battlefield. So that's a lot to have to deal with. And even at this next turn, it's going to get even worse. And so at the same time, you still know that the other battlefield has the potential of being taken. There still is a point, but you might be sacrificing here. And then not only that, Volley Bear has the ability that when a unit moves over to the other battlefield, he's able to draw a card. So immediately right there, Seb is going to be drawing one. Then we're going to go in with the Mind Splitter right there, being able to take a look and say, all right, let's get rid of, I mean, gosh, what at this point, the punch first? Would that maybe be the best one? That'd be the one maybe I would pick at that point. And it would go to the bottom of the deck. So especially with Aurora, the odds of him finding that again. But I'm curious here. And this is not an easy choice. It's like, do you want to get rid of Last Rites, where they're going to be able to, if you take care of the Mind Splitter, or the Volley Bear for that matter, but mainly the Mind Splitters, that they can conquer or hold and then immediately get a Mind Splitter back out. And then they're going to be able to continue to destroy your hand. And so, yeah, it looks like the punch first is going to be selected here. Going to be a very difficult choice at that point. But it is in the discard, so very difficult for it to be able to be used again. He does not run Fizz in the deck, and there is no necessary, like, spell getting out of the grave in that. So we'll see what ends up happening here, but again, still a very impressive board state for Alan. He is sacrificing the Ravenbloom student essentially, but still also even just having the hand knowledge at this point, knowing what you're going to have to face when you are going against your opponent in these showdowns. That's going to be the big thing here. And so the Volley Bear is going to be moving over into the other battlefield. Very powerful right there. And we're about to get another double Aurora after even a Sabotage. And so, again, now we're able to see, yeah, there's the signature spell. Both Fizz are either in the trash or on the board. And so, unfortunately, Arcane Shift is not going to be able to blip Fizz and get some good combo pieces potentially going here. And so Alan seems to be in a very difficult situation. Here comes another Mind Splitter. That at least is the third one. And the Frigid Touch is gone. But even still, having out a Smokescreen is still going to be a good help. But again, how do you deal with this damage? How do you try to build up this board state to be able to take down what Seb has been able to set up? I mean, you take a look and you're like, well, how do I deal with 17 on one board? How do I deal with 24 on the other board? And the top deck of the, I mean, gosh, the Called Shot is going to be huge, and happily paying the 4 to be able to then have to deal with that. But again, a double. Oh my gosh. So this is a very expensive stacked, or a very expensive Called Shot because of double hard bargain. But even still, he paid it, and he's going to be able to refill his hand. And that's going to be the biggest point of this match that I think is going to make the biggest difference, because Now he is able to find the answers in hand, and the 3 Mind Splitters are already out onto the field. Okay, cool. So now what can we do to be able to deal with this board state? There's no hidden cards, and we have a Ravenbloom student that's now coming in, and a pass. So again, there's only really one more unit that is going to be able to be summoned from the Dazzling Aurora at this point, and that is going to be it. And so this next turn for Alan is going to need to be very important. He's got to watch out for some more salvages, but it looks like it is just going to be a quick pass. Oh, but no targets at that point. So yeah. Oh yeah, because that's both Volibear. Yeah, that's all 5. And so yeah, it looks like that is going to be the answer at that point. And so can play the MF, but has already passed with the Dazzling Aurora. So he has all his runes up. But with also 2 hard bargains, that is going to be the only ways to stop spells, and that they have already been spent. So this is going to be a really big turn here for Alan as he's debating what cards to add in hand. And it looks like one's a Bellows Breath and one's a Rebuke, if I'm calling that correctly. It's one of my favorite parts about casting. It's like, what card is this? But yeah, it looks like we are going to be going with the Rebuke and the Retreat. So we are going to be able to potentially get a Fizz back at this point to be able to use it again. And very interesting choice on taking the Retreat. I love what that means. And so, again, we are going to be going with the Called Shot all over again. That's going to be, looks like another Rebuke that he potentially almost immediately picked, but is thinking on it. And again, we have the Vex out, and you're going to see why this sequencing is going to be so incredibly important here. What he is about to do is going to be nothing short of incredible. And so, yep, he does pick, if I saw right, the Rebuke. And then, there's the Rebuke and a signature spell. Does not hesitate, though. Immediately goes with said Rebukes. And he has a handful of answers at this point. And I mean, what? He has all the runes ready. He's floated 1 rune. So he has an extra rune that he's able to use because he's already spent the power cost. And so again, though, you got to be careful because you don't want to be giving your opponent too many, but he's going to be just sending in the Vex. And then at action speed, going to be sending the Volibear. Now, of course, Vex is only going to be allowing the Rebuke to cost 1 power and 1 rune less. So it's going to be 1 and a power, which is just absolutely insane. And then also, we still have the Ravenbloom that's getting pumped throughout this whole thing. So double Rebuke is going to be putting back the Volibears, and that already is going to be a huge difference maker because you already know Last Rites might be able to start being utilized here, but there's not going to necessarily be a whole lot of great answers, especially as Alan is going to start shifting the tide here. And now it's like, all right, well, we have 5 versus 7. Just like what they're saying here, you got to be worried about the punch first. You got to be worried about maybe some counters, but again, you already see the deck list. You already know that both of the hard bargains are at the bottom, so you do have to be worried about that. But it looks like the punch first is going to be coming out. That is going to be costing 2 power at this point. And we'll see if there's a Rebuke in hand or anything like that, but it looks like there probably won't be. But the Vex spell is going to make it cost 1 and 1 power more. So a very expensive punch first, but that's because this is a battle that needs to be won right now from the Aurora deck. Otherwise, things are going to continue to fall. So it looks like Bellows Breath is going to be played and repeated at that point. Again, a big combo here from Ezreal and Vex together. And so going to just need to pay 1 and a power if I saw that correctly. Because Ezreal's going to cover the... Or maybe even just 1, sorry. And then, yeah, it looks like the Stupefy is going to be coming in to draw another card. There's another Stupefy coming into hand. And so still could be going in. And, I mean, that is a big Ravenbloom student already up to +7. Or, yeah, 7. So there's been 5 spells played so far. And then on top of that, just drew a Wages of Pain. So that's going to be 3 damage and a gold created. And so the answers are there. It looks like the Vex is going to be able to conquer this here, going up to 7. Now, you still have to be mindful of the MF ganking, so you do need to take care of this battlefield. But at the same time, the Mind Splitter is still, was pinged once or twice with Stupefy. And there are still so many runes up left for Alan. And so you have the retreat. And, I mean, gosh, you have 8 and 7. So you are able to take this second one. You're going to be hoping that there isn't like another punch first or something at this point. And so, yeah, currently 12. But, gosh, those runes up make it so difficult because, yeah, if you call it wrong here, this also very well probably will be costing the game. And so a difficult decision here, especially with only 2 cards left in hand. But at the same time, you at least have the retreat. So you could still play out the Fizz, again, if you needed to be able to get an additional spell. So it looks like the 9 is going to be going in. And the called shot is going to be utilized here to try to draw and immediately repeat to get an action. And again, this is something that's really interesting here too, because I never thought about maybe trying to use a cold shot to try to dig a little deeper, but being able to do so is such a powerful card, to be able to utilize to get some answers, especially when spending a power in this case. But it looks like a fight or flight is going to be found here, and then we are going to be going with a retreat to put the Fizz back into hand, channeling a rune exhausted. And then it looks like one to play out a Seal. And then a Fizz all over again. Now, of course, you have some really great answers. I believe there still is, a Rebuke in the deck that's going to be taking out the... taking out the Mind Splitter, the bigger one at this point. And there is nothing that Seb can do at this point. He has the runes up, but right now the odds are stacked against him, especially with a 10 might. Student right there. And so it looks like another called shot, again, just trying to dig for those answers, but I don't necessarily know what could be found at this point. And it looks like a bullet time, though that is not going to be enough. It will be enough to maybe go for a trade, but that's going to leave you with only 2 runes at the turn. And at that point, there's nothing that you're going to be able to do. Everything is in hand. And so, again, just trying to find that final piece. And so, and it looks like there just isn't necessarily much that is able to be done at this point. We are going to be doing a fight or flight to send it back. I mean, still, the fact that you're able to be finding these answers is just absolutely crazy at this point. And so that's going to be end of the combat at right here. And you're worried because essentially the only thing that he's going to be able to do is maybe have the ability to take over the other battlefield. And Ezreal is going to be moving into the Void Gate and then seeing what ends up happening. And again, this could be something very difficult because now you're at 8 might. And with even challenge, though, that could help clear up the battlefield at that point. But even still, that would only be a trade. And so, that's going to be it. And going into game number 2. So, again, I mean, just the ability. I mean, you saw how many cards. The fact that the Ravenbloom student was able to get up to, 8 plus 8 at that point? Just absolutely insane there. And so, again, I'm going to be curious to see how the rest of this is going to end up going here. Because... again, you're able to see just what the Aurora deck is able to do so powerfully, but Ezreal is able to find the answers, and so immediately going to be going in with the Ezreal, recycling the rune, and discarding the signature spell. Again, something to definitely keep in mind, but now you have the Fizz in hand. And so again, you're seeing now, especially against Aurora, it almost feels like a race more often than not as the stack deck comes in, where you are trying to get as many points as possible before the Aurora comes down, because at that point, it's going to become a very uphill battle for you. And so I gotta also say, if you guys do have time, definitely watch the Ezreal v Ezreal gameplay that Alan is able to do. Very grindy match. It was a very slow match in that case, but it is very insightful on why it was, played so slow and why it took so long to try to secure that win. Very big deal right there on being able to do so. So we'll see what ends up happening, but looks like another stack deck. And again, you're already being able to find a lot of great answers here with this digging. And then again, another call of the trumpet to be able to channel the rune and see what Alan is going to be able to do this turn. Now, again, we have the Ravenbloom student. We also have a Fizz, though that's not going to necessarily be utilized here, but also with no stack deck or whatchamacallit, no stack deck and no called shot. This is going to be a very difficult situation to try to get through, but it looks like a reinforcement there with the student. And again, I want to take a pause right here just because it's really interesting that he actually went and reinforced with the Ravenbloom student. Very interesting gameplay and good options right there. So it looks like he did actually have a called shot in hand, but not one that he wanted to spend a rune on. So something very interesting to keep in mind there. So why then would you not want to spend a rune at this point to be able to look at 4 cards? Especially then being able to play out your Ezreal into a battlefield. So let me know what you guys think. Why would we want to do that then? And again, this is why I love watching this top gameplay footage, because you're able to dive into why maybe these options are being made here and why this is such a good option. And so there we go, immediately being able to get the seal at that point, then being able to get the called shot immediately off, adding one and then being able to put one on the bottom, finding either, what was that, a Mind Splitter and a Smoke Screen. And so the Smoke Screen going to the bottom, and keep in mind that is the only Smoke Screen in his hand. And so there we go again with the stacked deck. Going to be able to look at 3 more, just really filling up his hand. He's going with the called shot, putting a stacked deck on the bottom. And then I'm immediately going to be recycling a rune, floating one at this point, to be able to play out another seal to get Fizz going, to get another stack deck. And so there is the downwell. Now, one thing that I do really like about having one downwell in the side deck here, and why this is so important, because it can really shut down Aurora decks, it can shut down Miracle decks, Draven decks especially. Draven mid-range can really suffer here with downwell. They set up their entire board state, and then you wipe it, and then come out and say, oh, by the way, here's my Rasa's back out because I already have 10 cards in the discard. So really interesting options here then, and also really like that he has the spell damage that he cited in at this point against what he might be going with Ezreal. Again, this is a very spell-slingy deck that can dish out some damage, even with a couple of spells, but you're able to repeat those spells a good amount here. And so, looks like we'll be floating one. And then, yeah, it looks like the invert timelines is going to be coming in. I really do like the option of having one, but the downwell is no more. That is a lot in the discard, though. And again, if there's any Rashas or things like that, this could be a big difference maker. And it looks like there was a Vex and 2 Rebukes that were just drawn off the top. Now, again, we got to be careful, because if there are any Mind Splitters that end up coming out, one of the Rebukes are probably gone. But at least in this next turn, he has the ability to potentially play out Vex to get things moving. And as we get with a stack deck, a great option to, again, maybe get a little bit further ahead with the card draw and a fight or flight to slow down your opponent from scoring points, especially with something with like Aspirant's Climb out onto the battlefield. If you can even stop your opponent from scoring 1 point, or make it that much more inconvenient for them, it can be a much different playing field. But the hard part is here, and where Aurora could start failing, is if you, even with all the digging that you're able to do, if you are not able to find your Auroras, then your deck really can start to suffer. So yeah, looks like that's exactly what's going to be happening. The Vex is going to be coming in. And again, these seals, why they are so important in the deck. Now, there's a little bit of a debate going on right now as to if competitors want to run 3 or 2. 3 guarantees you that much more consistency, but at the same time, it can almost brick your hand a little bit more. So you got to be careful about how you go about it in this case. But still, you can imagine that on this next turn that Alan might start making moves here to get things going. And so the MF might very well be coming in, though not quite committed just yet. Yeah, it looks like the MF is going to be coming in. Though maybe not accelerated. Yeah, it looks like not accelerated. Still has a choice on being able to make that as part of the cost until, yeah, it looks like, yeah, that's going to be it. But another invert timelines. And I also got to say, I love invert timelines. I run one in my Sivir deck. Very helpful, especially if you do get in a little bit of a crunch. If you miss your miracle stuff, then you can play out the invert timelines. You can also replay it with a Fizz, which can be really powerful. Especially if you are at a card draw disparity there. So it looks like Fizz is going to be moving in to be able to go up to 3 at this point. And you're probably imagining, yeah, that there is a fight or flight here at this point. But we are going to go with the retreat, with the floated 1, to get Fizz back into hand, to be able to also channel a rune. And again, you're going to be seeing why the retreat is just so powerful there. And using it on the Fizz is going to be such a difference maker there. I mean, just being able to recycle and reuse your Fizz turn and turn again is just absolutely insane. Now, the called shot is going to be coming in immediately repeated. Another 4 cards to be taking a look at. Oh, and there's the Mind Splitter. So again, you're hoping that if he does have to search through the deck again, you're assuming that at this point, especially with how long the game has been going, that this very well could be the turn that he finds the that he finds the Aurora. So if you are then able to, on the following turn, get the answers going, this could be something that makes a really big difference. And even still, Alan now has a lot of runes at his disposal to be able to utilize here. And so he's going to be sending in the Vex and the Ravenbloom student. That is going to be at a +2, so a total of 9 at this point. Now, of course, Morbid Return is going to be added to that, again, for 1 less cost, and that is going to be getting the Fizz right back to hand. So again, waiting until the Vex comes in so that you are able to get a lot more value out of your spells is such a smart play here. And it's like, yeah, why not there? So looks like, yeah, looks like the hard bargain is going to be coming out. The 2 will be paid at this point. So the Fizz is going to be getting back into hand. And that's something to keep in mind too. I mean, also with the Ravenbloom student getting +1, but there is only 1 rune back into hand, but at reaction speed, you could still end up playing out a smoke screen or something like that too in response to the fight or flight. But it looks like the Rebuke is going to be coming in, sending the Mind Splitter right back to hand, and that is going to be a huge conquer here for Alan. And the answers that you are able to get off of these draws is just insane. But again, like we've said, there has been a lot of decision making that has been made here, which can be difficult. That can be something that makes this deck very mistake prone. But it looks like the Dazzling Aurora is here. And so it looks like the trade with the Vex is going to be happening. And then the Dazzling Aurora will be coming in. And so just barely a turn too late there as the Mind Splitter is found off the top, but again, you're seeing the factory recall right there. You have 2 answers to be able to remove the gear. Very powerful right there. Factory recall and the missile. And so it looks like the missile is going to be dealt with at this point. Doesn't have enough runes up, though. If he has a hard bargain in hand over at Seb, he's not going to be able to use it. And this is going to be absolutely devastating because the Aurora is about to be recalled to hand. At least not destroyed. So you're still going to be able to at least get something out. But even still, then the Mind Splitter play coming in to be able to discard. I mean, you know what's getting picked. I mean, still also, the invert timelines can immediately just dig right back for the answer still. Very tough choice, but still, I mean, you got to get rid of that Aurora. And I mean, just a very, very great play right there from Alan, being able to utilize it. Because yeah, it was either destroyed or you got it back into hand and was able to utilize that incredibly well. And again, you're also seeing how much work these seals are putting in. Normally, Ezreal does have some gold generation, and you've seen what it's able to do with like Rat Race Ezreal or things like that, though I don't think that is an optimal deck whatsoever. And he top decked another one. Holy, that's insane. And so, yeah, it looks like the Fizz is going to be taken down at that point. That's going to be another point scored here. But right now, excuse me, Alan is looking really good here. And so now the Dazzling Aurora is going to be activated. Oh, gosh, and getting away from the Sabotage. That can be such a powerful card against Ezreal. And there's the Volley Bear. That is also going to be stacked here, but also with no Vex anymore out onto the board. This is going to be maybe a little bit more difficult to have to deal with. But on the plus side, Seb is completely tapped out right now. And so the Rebuke in response is going, or at the start, is going to be utilized here. And that's going to be getting the Volley Bear right back to hand. And this is going to be a tough choice. How do you go in? Because you want to do this as optimally as possible. You're still going to have to deal with a lot out here. So the Fizz coming in, that is going to be recycling a rune, though you have plenty to spare at this point. Going to be going for a Morbid Return to get Fizz back into hand. Again, you're able to utilize that combo piece. And you're able to see just what Fizz is able to do to then also get back and put the Aurora right back into hand. So he's not going to be able to add an additional unit out onto the battlefield. It's like, hey, either you add one or you play out Aurora. You get to pick. But yeah, it looks like a called shot is going to be coming in. That's going to be another 4 cards. And even at this point now, you've seen how little Ezreal is being moved here. He is staying in the backfield and staying so that he can continue to use his secondary ability here, because that's going to be the biggest difference maker on trying to get things moving. And so here we go, being able to now move in and take care of the Mind Splitter. There's not necessarily, I mean, there's sometimes like people will run Confront and things like that to be able to get things moving. But at this point, I don't think that's being ran in his deck. Now, both battlefields are being held. Something needs to be accelerated out. Something needs to be able to take care of this. Bullet time, even at this point, would be clearing the battlefield. But it would not be enough to be able to stop the other two from coming behind. And just immediately taking for the final 2 points. And so Seb is in a lot of trouble here. He's going to be going with the invert timelines. Getting rid of the Aurora. It's dead at this point. I don't know what there necessarily is that he's going to be able to do to get back into this game. That's going to be one of the hardest parts. And that's going to be it, as Alan was able to take the game and win his first ever championship there. Great showing there, and a well done and very much deserved win from Alan. And guys, I mean, I got to be saying, the track record that Alan has been able to have speaks for itself, not only as a world champion for Runeterra, but also as now a winner of the European Regionals. Just an absolutely great game that he was able to do it with, and also without needing to use Draven to be able to win. But you got to see, look at what Fizz is able to do. Look at how he's able to rotate in and around a lot of the threats out onto the board, and the work that Fizz's work, especially Fizz and Vex, MVPs of the deck right there, and something that we are going to be keeping an eye on, especially as now we're going to probably see a lot of people picking up these decks, thinking about what they can do to be able to play. But man, am I very impressed with what Ezreal is able to do. Keep in mind, very tough deck. You get to see what Alan was able to do. You can only imagine how many hours of playtesting he was able to put in as a competitor preparing for this. He did the same thing with his Kai'Sa deck over in Houston, and that was one where he very well could have won too. I don't know if I think if he would have maybe remembered the arena's greatest, he very well could have beat the Annie deck and been able to go on and potentially win the regionals there. But unfortunately, yep, that kind of is what happens. But still, very impressed with what Alan was able to do, what he was able to do here and utilize. And I can't wait to see what he's able to do next. So this is a guy to follow. This is a guy to study. And I am very impressed with the deck tech he was able to display. So let me know what your guys' thoughts on Ezreal are. Are you going to be maybe running him now? Or are you maybe now better prepared to watch out for what Ezreal is going to be able to dish out? Let me know down in the comments below. And until next time, guys, have a good one.